Welcome back to Turning Point Tuesday here on Secret Spool. I'm Nina, and tonight's story is about a realization that doesn't arrive in a dramatic moment, but instead forms slowly through repetition. It's the kind of understanding that grows quietly through conversations you replay long after they end and patterns you keep explaining away because naming them feels uncomfortable. This is a story about blame, projection, and the moment someone finally understood that the problem wasn't their growth, but someone else's refusal to face themselves. For a long time, I believed conflict was something I caused. If a conversation became tense, I assumed I had said the wrong thing. If someone reacted strongly, I searched for the exact phrase I should have softened. I learned to speak carefully, to over-explain my intentions, and to apologize quickly, even when I didn't fully understand what I was apologizing for. Slowly, carrying responsibility for other people's emotions became automatic rather than optional. The first pattern showed up in conversations that were framed as helpful advice. I was told I never listened, that I dismissed suggestions, and that I always needed the last word. According to them, I was argumentative and defensive, someone who turned guidance into conflict simply by asking questions or offering a different perspective. But the reality never matched that accusation. The advice I was given was often outdated, impractical, or completely disconnected from my actual life. When I explained why something wouldn't work for me, it wasn't met with curiosity or discussion. Any disagreement was treated as disrespect, and any attempt to clarify my reasoning was interpreted as a challenge rather than a conversation. What became impossible to ignore was that my suggestions were never considered. Not once. If I offered an alternative idea, it was dismissed before it was fully heard. And when they realized their advice didn't apply, the embarrassment they felt turned into frustration aimed directly at me. Somehow, their discomfort became my responsibility to manage, smooth over, and apologize for. The second pattern centered on family, especially extended relatives I was expected to stay in constant contact with. I was blamed for being distant, cold, and uncaring. According to them, my boundaries meant I didn't value relationships or understand what loyalty and closeness were supposed to look like. But those relationships felt empty. Every interaction followed the same routine: surface-level conversations, repeated jokes, and polite exchanges that never went deeper. No one shared real struggles. No one spoke honestly about pain or fear. Support wasn't freely given. It felt conditional, transactional, and quietly tracked as something that might be owed later. That's when I realized they didn't understand something fundamental. Healthy relationships don't require constant communication to prove they matter. Sometimes closeness exists quietly. Sometimes space is not abandonment, but respect. But to someone who has never experienced emotional safety, distance feels threatening rather than neutral. The third pattern appeared in how mistakes were handled. I was labeled careless, unprepared, and irresponsible. Yet I watched them unravel over ordinary setbacks. A missed flight became proof they were a failure. A broken cup became evidence that they ruined everything. A forgotten bill became overwhelming shame instead of a solvable problem. Instead of pausing and regulating their emotions, everything escalated. There was no room for learning, adjustment, or calm problem-solving. Everything felt urgent and catastrophic. Slowly, I understood they didn't know how to be kind to themselves, and without self-compassion, patience for anyone else was never going to exist. The fourth pattern was the most painful. There were days I reached out for support, not asking for solutions, just wanting to be heard. But the moment I shared what I was feeling, the focus shifted away from me. They became anxious, overwhelmed, and emotionally flooded by my honesty. Suddenly, my pain wasn't allowed to take up space. I found myself reassuring them, calming them down, and minimizing my own feelings so they wouldn't feel guilty or inadequate. Over time, I stopped reaching out when I was struggling, not as a conscious decision, but because my body learned it wasn't safe to need anything. The fifth pattern showed up as paranoia disguised as realism. I was told I was too trusting, too optimistic, too naive about the world. But what I actually saw was fear, a constant expectation of judgment, suspicion toward strangers. Harsh commentary aimed at people who seemed confident or content, as if happiness itself was something dangerous. It finally clicked that they expected judgment everywhere because they judged everyone constantly. Trust felt unsafe because they couldn't imagine a world where people weren't waiting to criticize. Fear shaped how they viewed others, and control became the only way they knew how to feel protected. The final pattern appeared when I made decisions rooted in principle. Choosing not to have children, waiting before getting engaged, leaving a toxic job, taking time off for my mental health. Each choice was met with concern that sounded less like care and more like fear disguised as advice. That's when I understood what they couldn't admit to themselves. They didn't have a sense of self. Their lives were shaped around avoiding judgment from coworkers, neighbors, family members, and imagined critics. Watching someone else make intentional choices forced them to confront an uncomfortable truth. Their own lives had been shaped by fear, not necessity. The turning point wasn't an argument or a dramatic fallout. It was clarity. I stopped explaining myself, stopped shrinking my decisions, stopped accepting blame that never belonged to me. I realized projection only works when you agree to carry it, and I finally chose to put it down. Their discomfort was never my responsibility. Their emotional dysregulation was never my failure. Choosing myself didn't make me selfish. It made me honest. And if this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on what you might be carrying that was never yours to hold. If it helped you see something more clearly, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Secret Spool for more Turning Point stories every week.